What is it to be high on yourself? Halo, crown, light bulbs, high hats. They make us high on ourselves? Often are these associated with selfishness or arrogance, even demonic ways of being a place of horns, a place for evil kings and alpha males. There is really no simple explanation. In many cases, even a Jesus being can be seen as truly evil, due to psychological phenomena such as jealousy or, for example, a mistrusting heart. That's why Jesus was hung on the cross in the story. In people's minds, was he really a true demon, not a king? I want to revisit the king symbol, because in many ways we have misunderstood this symbol on many levels. Most kings throughout history had power over a collective of people, treating the people similarly to slaves. But in true symbolic representation, is the king symbol very different. A true king does not have power over people, but instead they have power over themselves. This is why Jesus was a real king. He hung on the cross and still forgave the people who made him suffer. That's true self-control, and it inspired the masses rather than controlling the masses. One also naturally becomes a king when in a healthy state of being. You can see this in children who are joyful, as if hearts levitate up from their being. The hearts elevate because it's what a crown fundamentally is for. When one is in love with self and others, the heart opens to the maximum extent. This is why one gets high on themselves also. The crown makes a person higher and prouder than before. The depressed person who hates himself or feels low self-worth, however, does not have crown energy because the embodiment of higher love is lacking, usually due to a blockage such as underlying grief. The heart is the origin of the crown because the heart has an EM field that is activated through love. Therefore, the crown is quite literally the top of a torus field, extending up from the head and flowering out to the sides. It completes the electromagnetic torus field. This is why crowns look similar all over the entire world, no matter the place of origin. It's also why the energy center called Sahasrara is traditionally visualized as a lotus with petals extending out to the sides, like a crown. It's said that the crown connects us with divinity, but it's not completely accurate. To really connect to heaven, your crown needs to be literally as high as our atmosphere is. That's why this crown in particular is in truth a halo. The king is a symbol of someone who is connected to the higher self, to their soul and heart. But a halo connects you to even higher divinity. The symbol of peak divine connection is therefore to be an angel, which is a king with a sky-high crown. When the energy goes that high, it is experienced as a beam of love and light connecting with the electromagnetic field of Earth, which is heaven. The halo is the portal in which this beam can shoot out from. It's a symbolic representation of a sky-high torus field, connecting one to a space so big that one becomes one with Earth and heaven itself, perhaps even the universe. There is also beams shorter than the crown, such as a topper hat, which is literally described as a man's silk hat with high cylindrical crown. Wearing a hat, as such, symbolizes a person who feels important. The person who feels he is important will feel compelled to wear it, or if you don't feel important to begin with, you will feel compelled to feel important when you wear it. It's literally a form of body language. And as a side note and reminder, heaven wants you to feel important. There is no other way to connect. It's important to be important. You just need to be important in the correct way, which is different than being important in the wrong way. It obviously includes the ability to see everyone as inherently important, yet without trying to diminish your own importance or not allowing yourself to feel important if other people around you have low self-worth. Mimicking others just because they have low self-worth does not equal the right importance levels. You need to listen to the soul, even if people accuse you of having too high self-importance, as if one matters to the universe rather than being mere dust in a big galaxy. I guess what I try to say is that you should listen to people in a philosophical way. If they react, consider if you have gotten the bad kind of self-importance, but also contemplate if the reaction instead comes from a hidden jealousy or societal group contract about underplaying our essence in order to keep us trapped and locked away from divinity. We are love, so we are important, like any baby and any life. In my opinion, we are all supposed to be real kings and angels, because that's how important we really are. We are consciousness, and it's our job to bring heaven to earth. I talk about this taboo because we humans not feeling worthy of divinity is one of our main hidden obstacles. Having the right type of self-importance is much more what should be the focus, because trying to find the right level of self-importance is not really where it is. It's not a degree thing, unless we talk about introversion versus extroversion. The real truth is that all bad self-importance typically is something that is inherently coming from low self-worth. Thus do they not truly feel important. They feel low self-worth but think they feel important, which is an illusion, motivated by unresolved shame, fear, and guilt. You can instead find the truth and open up for your higher self, which is that you are worth it. You can be a prophet, you can learn to be as insightful as Einstein or Carl Jung, you can become what you really are, a voice from divinity itself. And that being said, to be high on your own supply removes neediness. Hat expression is a body language, but is archetypal rather than biological. In fact, since the higher body is metaphysical, it is inherently made of ideas and creations. Its body language therefore has a creative expression. Even earrings and similar is therefore included in such. They are not expressions of subconscious body language, but expressions of superconscious body language. It's a language that does not come from flesh and its sensations, but instead from spirit and its nonsense. The topper hat in later times has been known for magic. Hence, is there a white rabbit inside the hat? The symbol in many ways has to do with ideas, and it's very true that ideas pop up right above our head. That's why we draw bright ideas like light bulbs above our head in cartoons. It's really truly where ideas originate. Miracles are found high up in the sky. Magical illusion tricks, on the other hand, is actually very down to earth in comparison, yet high enough to include a tiny bit of miracle within it. The miracle is not the illusory magic tricks, but instead in the capacity to come up with these novel ideas to begin with. It also opens the mind to nonsense, yet in a way that is sensibly comfortable. It's the first steps a materialist can take in order to be comfortable with nonsense, if you will. All hats have their own unique archetypal signature, whether it be a cowboy hat or rose hat. What you wear can change you, and who you are can compel you to wear certain cloth. Hats are probably of the most expressive clothing when it comes to the higher self, though most of the higher self is a metaphysical expression. All hats are linked to ideas. Some schools even use idea hats for students. All idea things, the elevated thoughts and feelings, such as idealism, ideologies, ideal things, must come from the superconscious above our head. Plato's idea of the realist world was indeed the idea form world, and therefore he talked about heaven, which was outside the cave in the famous cave analogy. This is clear when you read how he contrasted the truly real with the sensory senses, hence intuition versus sensing. The senses, according to Plato, fooled you into believing in an illusory reality. Yes, idea content cannot be found with the physical senses. That's why all of this is located above the head, not in the body itself. People who live a lot above their heads are often seen to be crazy. They have their heads in the clouds. Their bird perspective is so high they sound like airheads, often expressing ADHD-like focus, not being able to see one single thing in detail. There is several crazy Hatter characters out there in various fictions. Mad Hatter, Willy Wonka, Jervis Tetch, and so forth. There is also the green guys, leprechauns, which also express a form of higher magical and whimsical things, such as gold and luck under the rainbow. This might seem to be unrelated to divinity, but divinity, spirituality, and even religion have always focused on the miraculous and superconscious. In fact, just like the Mad Hatters, are spiritualists often viewed to be crazy people in the same way, indulging in nonsense. The hat in Harry Potter is also showing a nonsensical or superconscious quality to it, showing that the place above our head is special. We baptize babies there, and the hat in Harry Potter does something similar in that it determines a house for every person. It's as though something conscious, far up in the sky, is helping an individual to make a decision. As if something is decided by a higher power and guidance, such as a spirit guide. The hat is alive, so this is shown very clearly in the Harry Potter fiction. It's higher conscious guidance taking place. Introverted intuition is very much like a very tall hat. Think about this. Introverted sensing is a subconscious guidance from the body below. What do you think the introverted intuition is? It's also a guidance, but it's from the higher metaphysical body, and therefore the guidance comes from the body above, our higher soul and its connections. If you have studied MBTI for long enough time, you would know very well that NI heroes are most likely to believe in spirit guides, albeit usually in secret, unless they feel safe enough to share it. Spirit guides are superconscious entities. Their guidance comes from a free will place, even if from the free will of angels and similar. SI has subconscious guidance. It does not guide from free will and creation, but from tradition, recreation, and instinct. Its guidance is based only in what has worked and reproduced itself before. Superconscious guidance, however, does not need to repeat creations. Angels and other beings can guide people in whatever way they want. They will try to guide based on free will, more than being too influenced by the past. Free will is actually the only way to disfear an innocent small spider, because our subconscious fear spiders due to an ancestral past that remembers the large ones. Hats that are more spread in expression, such as the Joker's hat or trickster hat, is actually more symbolic of extroverted intuition or NE. These hats find many light bulbs at once and are able to combine and play with them in complex ways. They also know how to pick up on others' ideas and visions, as if the clown hat is a multi-antenna receiving more of the metaphysical surroundings than it receives the metaphysical high above. Sometimes we have drawn this expression in another way, like for example, if a mad scientist, we might draw hair standing out in all places as if the person is electrocuted. Yes, he receives energy from above in the electromagnetic field. It's like making a hat without illustrating it with a hat. In fact, nobody needs a hat to have hat energy, because our crown chakra is directly metaphysical and therefore physically empty. It is shaped by energy and free-willed imagination. To have our head in the clouds directly above our head is a form of very local remote reviewing. This is also why we draw thinking bubbles above our head in cartoons, while the eye looks up to the creative right brain as if looking at nothing. It's because we make up the thinking, meaning we create it on our own, especially if it's not subconscious and reaction-based. Intuitive personalities score high in openness in Big Five, because they are the same thing. When we are open-minded, we have a hat of energy. That's what it means. Your head is literally open to the above nonsense. If one does not have an open mind, one has inferior intuition, and to be in their shoes literally would feel like having a heavy lid on top of one's head. Now, what about the evil rulers, the arrogant, selfish people? I think it's true that one can have a dark crown of sorts, though I think it looks more of a hat, or in fact, like horns. Horns on the head is developed through both anger and creativity. Therefore, is this a manifestation of using heaven for evil? I do not think it's possible to reach far up to heaven with only anger coupled with a closed heart, but it makes sense to say that it at least reaches far enough to come up with some creative solutions. Horny like a devil, aware of his powers, but unaware of how inferior sensing or bodily trauma is driving his actions in secret. Think about this. In cartoons, one can become so angry that the lid on top of the head lifts and we see them boil with rage. The furious rage they feel probably does create a little fiery hat on top of that skull. And as such, they can start to use ideas to manipulate people and so forth. If generational enough, they might even develop real horns. No kidding. I do not believe any creature out there was able to develop horns and teeth and claws if they did not, in some shape or form, will for it to manifest. To their defense, perhaps it was the only thing they could do to survive. But one thing is for sure, the manifestation has been a creative and intentional one, even if intended by repeating wounds in the lower animal. However, the only way to get high and expansive energy around the head is through an open heart and true love. The halo high being doesn't look like a being with crossed arms and a black, dense, thunderous cloud above their head. This is why Aang from Avatar looks enraged when he gets into Avatar mode. It's not that he uses that energy for evil, but instead he takes his power back from all sources that were using it for else than love. His power energy goes straight up to heaven, filling his vessel with bliss and light so that his nervous system starts to glow with energy. He used what is called healthy anger, which does not resent, nor does it retaliate or seek to punish anyone who did something wrong, but it simply creates boundaries and the ability to say following, "No, I don't want to give energy to self-harm anymore." When getting the power back, his heart can finally radiate, and his higher self is all of a sudden available because his energy is no longer overconsumed by survival and similar in the down-to-earth environment. This is essentially how to combine love and peace with power and will. Carl Jung himself claimed that Jesus encountered the devilish desire for power. He did not want to give in to this temptation, but thanks to what Carl Jung called the transcendent symbol arising between two conflicting oppositions, was it possible to create an alternative. The idea of a kingdom in heaven, a spiritual one rather than a material one, or perhaps, at least in my opinion, a mix of the two. Jesus is a symbol of both heaven and earth. He was half human, half God, like Hercules. The devilish power in the human was used to give heaven more power on earth, reducing suffering through self-control and asserting love despite clashing energies, both inwardly and outwardly. He used power to discipline himself to stick with love and forgiveness, no matter what. In Dario Nardi's brain imagining study for MBTI types, it was found that many INFPs have halo pattern brains when creative and empathic, meaning there is less noise in the top parts of the brain. The Biocybernaut Institute somewhat similarly claims that angel pattern, the brain of those who claim they can perceive angels, has high alpha in the very central top of their brain in a more concentrated spot, hence like a hole or halo at the top of their head. In my own enlightenment experience, when I was 23 years old, I became a beam of love coming out of my head, and with it, I also became heaven itself, and also closer to my body, an electromagnetic bubble of self-love around me. Just to mention, I was sober and have never used psychedelics, even though my brain for sure looked as if on it, full of ecstasy feelings and euphoria, which I like to call braingasms, and I can still make small ones today, even if microscopic in comparison. It feels like the brain is on euphoric fire, you know, a power fire extending upwards towards heaven like a high hat. I will talk about this most important experience of my life in depth in another very important and very special video that is yet to come. But it's useful to mention in this video about the higher self, and especially because I've also recently found something that closely resembles true evidence, even if my experience is one that I had in a personal space. But the point is that this was more than subjective. It was an objective part of who we are, like the extra unknown organ or body part we have inside our hat, or even far, far above it. Check this out.
Many of them will report later feeling as if their perception of self is outside of their head, that they're literally it's very uncomfortable for them, that they feel like they're walking around with their sense of self extended beyond the body. And this is a clinically described neurological